Alright, here's my hour of being by myself. Well, except for my, I should probably name my dog Velcro, because she doesn't... It's kind of weird having a dog. I've never had my own dog before, right? I've had a lot of dogs in my life, but it's so weird to see a dog singling you out of everybody and having to stick by you. I mean, I can't even go to the bathroom. She's got to get up and go see what I'm doing. Hang out there, wait for me. Go back to do what I'm doing, she'll go lie down by me. It's so bizarre. But anyway, she's, this is so funny how a dog needs to be right with you. So weird. So anyway, here's my hour. Running this whole place solo. But I'm doing it. 2 dogs, 3 cats. 3 or 4. 3 cats left, 1 died. 1, 2, 3 cats, 2 dogs, 2 horses, teenage chickens, baby chickens, and laying hens. Everybody needs your ass. Now, it's freezing in here. So, you're gonna have to hear that heater in the background. I know it doesn't bug most people, but it bugs the shit out of me. I cannot stand background sound. Excuse me. Short one, destined to be a How to Hunt classic. Steve, here's my story. I'm a subcontractor in Northwest Wyoming. As I tooled into a new job, I noticed that instead of the usual cacophony of music blasting on the job site, they were playing someone's podcast about the Skinwalker Ranch. Well, I took that as an opening to tell the 7 or so tradesmen in the room about my Mindspeak experience up on, quote, M, end quote, creek. They listened intently until their leader blurted out, "I hike and hunt and camp all the time in M Creek, and you're making this up. You're full of shit." Picture this. They all at once began belly laughing and mocking me. It was a cringe moment for sure, but I know an old holy man who listens to your show, and Steve, he talks to God like you and I would talk to the postman. I'll keep his identity and location secret for now. I told him what happened, and he prayed a simple prayer. Lord, teach, quote, O, end quote, the leader and main antagonist, not to make fun of things he knows nothing about. Steve, that was it. Fast forward 60 days till elk season, and I was at home one evening getting a log from the pile when my phone rang. Dang. I cringed because it was the same contractor who mocked me. I gritted my teeth and answered, expecting more mocking, but this is what I heard. Quote, hey, remember you told us all about your encounter up on M Creek? And we laughed. Holy shit, was I wrong. The main antagonist was camping at M Creek during elk season, and something huge walked up to his tent and screamed like a woman getting murdered. It scared him to his core. Then he heard it run away on 2 feet, crashing through the thick brush like a bulldozer. Then punched his ticket to the club on a return. So what did any of us... So did what any of us would do and sent him a link to your YouTube channel. I know it'd be a little vague, but I must protect the identity of the old holy man. Sincerely, S. Okay, man, I gotcha. There you go. This probably happened more times than not, right? We've got a fair amount of people have emailed in here sharing that they laughed at this topic, even laughed at this channel, and then all of a sudden had that shit sandwich delivered up to their plate in front of them, right? And it's gonna keep happening. Thanks for sending that in, man. Appreciate you sending that in. Appreciate your time. Here's another one. More pieces of the puzzle. Steve, you read an email on your, quote, I'm back ready for this, end quote, video from a guy who you indicated had, in your estimation, a lot of knowledge on the subject. And you're right. He's dead on target. But He has some questions to which I have some of the answers. Steve, I've been a lawyer most of my life, so I know how to research. I learned to ask questions. Every decent trial attorney knows the way to uncover evidence is to begin with good questions. Then, you question the answers. You follow the evidence as far as you can. You learn to connect dots when the dots have been erased. You learn the art of speculation, as in, what if this is so? Or, suppose this was true, what then? I've also done some deep dives into the Sabe world, looking at every angle. Secular, religious, mysterious books and ancient writings, you name it, I've looked at it. I feel I have a perspective that answers many of our questions, or at least gives us some ideas to run with. Some things to chase that won't turn into rabbit trails. Origins. He is spot on as to the origins being from the experiments done by these angelic beings who, according to the ancient writings, not just the Bible, decided to mate with human women. The product of the union was a race of giants. There were giants on earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them. The same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. Genesis 6:4. What we call the Greek myths, based on real stories passed down, was based on real stories passed down. Those early productions of what has been called Nephilim and the offspring of them were truly incredible beings. They could not be killed by the humans then, and even today. I'm convinced our best team of Navy SEALs would not be able to take even one of them down. Our special forces and hunters with your kind of skills can take down most of the strange creatures that exist today, but not those early giants. The giant of Kandahar is the evidence for our military being able to take down these giants existing today. See the interview done by L.A. Marzulli with a Marine who was there. The giants warred with each other. The giants in the early days of our history, the pre-flood era, reached a population such that they were literally devouring every piece of meat on the planet and began eating the humans. The ancient writings speak of these days and tell of a time when they began to war with each other. It was a time when mankind hid themselves and watched the horror show as these giants waged unrelenting, merciless war on each other and on the humans who dared show themselves. The old prophet Moses wrote, quote, "The earth also was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence," end quote. His understatement is gigantic, pun intended. Prior to these wars, the 200 angels took on a role of literal gods in the earth, think Zeus, etc., and began gene experimentations. There are pre-Bible writings describing these experiments from which the man in the email you read was quoting. Some of these early creations were so powerful and so uncontrollable, they began turning on the children of the angels, the Nephilim, and their offspring. While these monstrosities could not defeat any of the 200 angels, they certainly were able to hurt and kill the offspring of those indestructible beings. And that they did. The monsters also became a threat to humans. War was going on between the monsters and the Nephilim and the humans. All life was in danger. God destroyed most of life to save humanity. God had to destroy most of the life on the planet. If he had not done so, all human DNA would have become corrupted, and all the true humans would have been devoured. The ancient writing we've managed to turn into a cliche, the Bible, that speaks of such a time. And God said unto Noah, "The end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them. And behold, I will destroy them with the earth." Genesis 6:4. There are some who believe that the only DNA that was still not contaminated, contaminated, was the 8 people God chose to continue the existence of humans. That certainly is implied in the early writings, I don't know. But what is pretty clear is that the human DNA was about to cease, and thereafter would only have been hybrids and monsters. Humanity was about to be extinct. as well as the creatures God created. Given the voracious appetites of the Nephilim and the monsters, and no animal was safe. The Creator said, "The end of all flesh is before me." In other words, excuse me, God was saying, the beings I created, humans and animals, are on the verge of extinction. We were a species about to become extinct. The only thing that would be remaining would be hybrids. And if God were to rescue mankind by sacrificing himself on a cross as Jesus, his plan to do that would be impossible, since Jesus would have been born of a woman hybrid, a non-human. Jesus would not have been a perfect and blemished lamb. God could not have a perfect sacrifice to bear the sins of mankind. So, God took the remaining purebred humans aboard the ark, and our species survived. I realize a lot of people will reject this, but you asked for us to supply you with pieces of the puzzle, so here it is. Present-day Sabe and monsters. Some of these created beings survived the flood, since the Bible says there were giants in the earth in those days and also after that. We've all heard the stories of David and Goliath and the brothers of the giants that David and his men fought. By the way, David and his band of mighty men had to be some pretty awesome warriors. The experiments by these fallen angels has not stopped. However, they now have been able, with the assistance of humans and their governments, experiment on a level never before possible, and with a level of sophistication never possible. Need receipts for that bold statement. We've heard that a lot. Not a receipt. A lot of what we're seeing in the woods are products of early experiments done hundreds of years ago, perhaps earlier. They are, for want of a better word, discards. These are creatures that merely satisfy their curiosity as to what would emerge if they merged this chromosome with this one, etc. They've been turned loose into the woods where they've been populating the earth for many years. Some of these engineered creatures, the Sabe, are not dangerous and have an instinctive desire to remain hidden. However, we're also beginning to see the products of more recent experiments. These are very, very scary beings. These are the beings that can cloak themselves. These are the ones that can mind speak. These are not the ones that toss rocks and break trees. Those are just beasts, or at best, with some human DNA sprinkled in, which gives them an intelligence that is greater than pure animal. However, some of the hybrids mingled with wolf species and other such animals are truly dangerous to humans. The dogmen are dangerous, but the average Sabe merely wants you out of its territory. I have a pretty plausible theory on why Sabe are very dangerous, but that's for another time. But the newer created hybrids should give us all concern. They are the ones doing the kidnappings. These hybrids are murderous, calculating, and they think on a level with humans, factored by a devilish insight to things given it by its creators. They don't lurk in the woods unless they're hunting. These engineered monsters, as well as hybrids that look as human as you and me, lurk beneath our earth in tunnel-like cities, though many of the human hybrids now roam freely, and I suspect populate our government. They have labs. They have prisons, holding facilities. They work with humans and human hybrids. They kidnap humans for DNA, for blood, and their demonic experiments. All these facilities, including transportation systems and vehicles, were bought and paid for by the U.S. government and a few other sources. The bulk of it, though, is U.S. tax dollars, siphoned off through black projects that are hidden or masked with layers and layers of cover. Okay, man, those are bold statements. Where's the labs? Who told you? Who showed you? Who convinced you that these labs are in existence and these people are underground and cities are? Have you seen them? See what I'm getting at? I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying you're right. But what I am saying is bold statements like this that don't start with, I got a feeling that maybe this might be right. We don't get that. We get, this is what's going down. They're doing experiments. These things come out, kidnap people for the DNA, and there's underground cities. Where are they? Who told you this? Who showed you this? Right? Yeah, I hear them too. conspiracy theory, another fruitcake. Deep breath. Okay, I deserve those rocks since I've tossed a few in my day. But as a man in his 80s and who has seen a lot of life and had a few experiences that are beyond the ordinary, and has spent enormous amounts of time researching and thinking on this subject, I put the dots together. I'd love to be proven wrong, but for me, that's where the dots run. Next to final thoughts on the ultimate purpose of these beasts being created, and I'll shut up. You're not the only man with a disposition to babble, Steve. These hybrid beasts are all part of an elaborate and sophisticated plan by the mysterious being we call Satan. There was a day I'd have scoffed at the existence of such a creature, but having been in his presence at least once in my life, I know better. It was an experience on a level with some of the stories told in here about meetings with the Sabe and other creatures. It was a literal mind-numbing, overwhelming experience, the kind your listeners write in about that never goes away, the kind you cannot erase from your mind. You will remember it to the day you die. Fortunately, I was rescued by one of those beings we call angels, but that's another story for another time, perhaps. There probably should have been the opener story. I'm thinking, this highly intelligent being has a malevolence for humans that cannot be fully expressed. It has no measure. The hatred and evil I felt physically and mentally was on a level I cannot even describe. This being wants to destroy all humans from the planet. But the purpose of these lab-engineered monstrosities? Short answer, they are part of the army this being is creating to fight against God, to destroy all his kingdom, and replace all humans with his own creation. Quote, "And I looked, and behold a pale horse. And his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him. And power was given unto them over the fourth part of the earth to kill with sword, and with hunger, and with death, and with the beasts of the earth." Rev 6:8. Did you catch that last line? With the beasts of the earth. That's not just talking about lions and tigers and wolves and such. That's talking about these created beasts as well. The evil Sabe and all the hybrid monsters created by Satan and his minions will descend upon humanity during this time. By the way, this is the time Jesus talked about. Here's what he said was headed our way. Quote, "For then shall be great tribulation, such as what not since the beginning of the world to this time, nor ever shall be." 22. "And except these days should be shortened, and there should be no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened." Final thoughts, and I'll stop babbling. There will come a time of Christians called the rapture. It's a time when all Christians are taken out of the world, out of harm's way. Think of any time you may have taken your Sarah. My daughter's name's Sarah, so I used that spelling. Or maybe one of your hunters you were guiding and hurried them to a safe spot. You sensed or saw danger, but they did not. So you do not want any good parent or spouse or human, for that matter, would do. You put them in a safe spot. Jesus has plans to put his people in a safe spot for the horror that is coming. God will do for his children the same he did for Noah and for Lot. He removed them from the evil to come. Once that rapture event comes, it will become, with a short time, a literal hell on earth. Many will realize the Christians had nailed it. They'll know it wasn't a fairy tale, and they will turn to God in the millions. But they will all die unless they take the infamous mark of the beast. I have some ideas what this is and wrote about it on my blog a while back. But I don't know for sure. What I do know is that the Bible says that those who take the mark are doomed eternally. And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, "If any man worship the beast in his image and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels, and in the presence of the Lamb." Keep your powder dry, man. Tough times ahead, even before those bad times. I got a feeling this year is going to be the year of the earthquakes or some kind of food crisis. Keep sensing that in my gut. Like you little talk and trusting your gut saved my life at least twice. These two things keep popping up. Maybe it'll be both, I don't know. Hopefully it'll be neither. If it's an earthquake, what pops to mind is the new Madrid thing. In the last one, in the 1800s, the land was sparsely populated. Now millions live there and thousands of buildings and houses. It would be catastrophic. Appreciate your open mind. Well, I babbled long enough. I need a light system, like the judges in federal appeals court use. When the lawyer reaches his time limit, a red light comes on and they'll cut you off mid-sentence. And yeah, I've been interrupted, LOL. Somebody probably messed with my DNA. Okay, man. There we go. There we go. Take from it what you will or leave it. There's no shortage of excerpts from the Bible being shared here. There's a lot, actually, isn't there? I know it turns a lot of people off, pisses a lot of people off, but everybody's getting heard. What do I think of that? I don't know. I tend to keep my opinion on various topics to myself as I take in, and I take in, and I take in, and I take in. And everything sits on a little shelf in the back of my head, and sometimes drives me bonkers. How would the Earth benefit from us surviving? That's the big question. Why do we need to survive? Why can humans not be allowed to go extinct? Might be a bit of a weird thing to say, isn't it? Right? But from what we've seen today in the past, I don't know how many years, who or what would lose the most if we went extinct? Who or what would benefit from us going extinct as a species? Right? If you look at it, if you just jump out of the bubble and look in, you got to look at it from every different angle, right? So how would the Earth benefit for us to stay alive? It's a twisted freaking question, isn't it? But let's just say, I don't know, what's the benefits of the human species not going extinct? Ask yourself that. I don't know. Right? Do we really? I mean, what is our purpose here? What is your purpose here? Do you ever ask yourself that question? Exactly what are you doing? Are you doing anything good here? That'd be a good question for every single person that comes across this channel to ask yourself, what are you doing more of? Good, bad, or absolutely nothing with your time here, being a human being? It can be confusing. I think it's probably one of the biggest questions a lot of people have. What's my purpose? Why am I even alive? Why am I here? We've all had it. I have. Right? Why are we here? Who or what exactly benefits from us even existing here? Don't know. Who or what benefits from us being annihilated? Who or what allegedly absolutely despises us? If you think about it rationally, it's all just such a frickin' waste of time. Hating is an absolute waste of frickin' time. Going to war, absolute waste of time. You know what I mean? There's a lot of things being shared, a lot of things are blatantly, this is what's going on, blasted out to us as an audience, and doesn't start off with, this might be, maybe, I feel there's a possibility. We've got a lot of people that just throw it in their face, that's the way it is, that's what's coming, that's what's going down. Right? I have seen and listened to some military first-hand witnesses of seeing. Actually, I heard this one guy on the Sean Ryan podcast. This guy and another military man saw, I think it was a natural disaster in a challenged small country islands. I forget. So I'm sorry, I forget exactly the exact details, but what my brain remembers is these guys were there and they saw this vehicle, ship, whatever you want to call it, hovering off of the ground like nothing with North American military, whatever you want to call them, throwing people into this thing and threatening these other guys with their lives. Eyewitness to seeing people being taken by human beings. I don't have any eyewitnesses telling me they're watching DNA being manufactured underground in a city. Not one eyewitness. Yet. Anyways, I'm babbling. There's a lot to take in, a lot to tangle up in your brain, and a lot to spew out of my head. I need my lips and my brain to mesh up smoothly before I should even talk. A lot of things. Hopefully I just made sense. Maybe it didn't. I don't know. But I'll tell you what, that could be a question right now. Who or what exactly benefits from us being an existing species? That's a pretty good question, really. Don't you think? Here we go. Excuse me. Belgium experiences. Hello, Steve. All right, I am not going to be able to pronounce this properly. I'm certain of it. Thierry is my name, and I am a 39-year-old ex-officer with the Belgian Paracommando troops. And after years of silence, I'd like to inform everyone about my experience and to always be careful when you enter a park or forest. Here we go. Now, your name is spelled Thierry. I apologize if I butchered your name. Thierry? Thierry? Right? Who knows? I'm sorry. I am a Belgian and personally know what our government is doing with only a small defense budget. And I don't want to know what the big countries like Canada and the US are doing with it. I already know something about the subject over the years and watch and listen to your channel every day, and have struggled for a while to send the first email. But I can't resist because people have a right to know. Thank you. Since I have some experiences and do not want to submit everything at once, I will divide and send my experiences so that other voices can also be heard. And I'm sorry if there are any errors in my grammar. I'm sorry if I read shitty. I still use Google Translate, LOL. My first experience is when I was 10 years old. Then, I always went to camp with the Scouts. Almost always to the Ardennes. Ardennes. Could be Ardennes. Ardennes in the south. To the French-speaking part of Belgium. I am from the Dutch part of my country. We lived together with the management and the others in a huge wooded chalet on the edge of the forest, where there was a huge fish pond. Ideal for scouts. Camp was halfway through about the 4th or 5th day when we went to play a forest game. Capture the flag. I wanted to capture the flag by going all the way around and sneaking up on them and surprising them. I had completely wallowed in the mud and watched a bit too much Rambo. At one point I was sitting behind a tree stump and wanted to jump over it, but I heard a loud breathing like a 7-year-old smoker and looked, and I thought I saw someone standing behind a tree in a hairy suit. But it was about 50 meters from me, and I wanted to take a closer look. I jumped over the stump, and while I was jumping, the figure came from behind the tree about 2 steps toward me, and I couldn't believe my eyes. A gorilla on 2 legs. His nose was moving. There was mucus hanging from his mouth, and his massive chest was going up and down. 30 long seconds passed. I was transfixed. I realized I was in a very dangerous situation. He turned it up and stepped back. I think he probably meant he turned around and stepped back into the forest, and I broke free and sprinted to the chalet while crying. Of course, no one there believed my story. It was someone from the village of Malmedy, Malmedy, who wanted to surprise or frighten us. But I knew what I had seen. I've not been to that camp in that forest since then. Since then, I've been bitten and also wanted answers, and knew that if I wanted that, I had to join the army. And since I did, well, at school, when I was 16, I went to the Royal Military Academy in Brussels to train as an officer. Then to Marche les Dames, Marcheles, to complete my training as a paracommando, where I was put in charge of a platoon. Being the Army also came in handy for being able to get my weapons permit in Belgium. I still go hunting a lot in the south. And this was my first experience, and the others will follow. Thank you for sharing my story, and I hope that more people from my country will follow, because I know that there are still people watching and listening, and hope they will also send. Thanks again, Steve and Sarah, for this platform. Greetings, Thierry. Terry? Maybe it's pronounced Terry. I apologize. Next time you write in, which I hope is soon, and you do, tell me how to pronounce your name, all right? And there you go. Belgium. I wonder how many more people are listening from there and are going to email in. I hope lots. So, I'll save commentary until you email again, and let's keep hearing from you, all right? And get it all out, man. Get it all out in one email next time, if you can. Don't worry about how long. Now, this next one is titled, Bigfoot Sounds in Squamish. Said many people, believe me. God, there's like all this little lint and everything's blowing around and catching me in the nose in here all the time when I'm in here. Hey, how to hunt. I have a story that happened to me a year ago. So, my name is Joshua Hammermeister. I live in Vancouver, BC. So last year or so, me and a group of my friends went to Squamish for a big group camping trip. We drove out there on a Friday and then come home on Saturday because everybody had to work and school. We decided to go to this campsite, Mountain Fun Camp. I didn't pick the name, but I was already kind of skeptical of going camping in a tent, as tenting is not really my thing. We have dinner, and it's getting dark and late, so we were all getting ready for bed, and one of our friends blew out her knee somehow. A couple of friends drove her to the Squamish hospital. They stayed there until 3 in the morning. Me and about 8 others stayed back by the fire and wanted to stay awake till our friends came back. At this point, we were sitting around the fire, and it was about 1:32 in the morning, and we started hearing howls all around us. Mind you, it's pitch black in this campsite at 1:32 in the morning, so I start to get, nervous. Maybe there are wolves around, but I'm like, whatever. So it eventually, after 30 minutes of that, stopped. Then we proceeded to hear a monkey scream in the bushes. There's not monkeys or apes in BC, or not that I know of. So that really put me off and kind of freaked me out. So I kept listening with my friends, and that went on for a couple more times. And so after that, it stopped. We all went to bed because we were kind of freaked out. My buddies, who I was sleeping next to, fell asleep so quick, and I left there laying awake. I then fell asleep, and all of a sudden I woke up again at 4. I then proceeded to hear wood knocking. Really, really loud wood knocking out in the bushes. And I've heard about that before, how Sasquatches knock on trees. And I heard it about 10 knocks, and then it stopped. At this point, I'm thinking to myself, I'm never, ever camping in Squamish in a dinky tent ever again. So after that ended, I hear gunshots, and it echoed across the whole valley. And I hear, maybe you meant then I hear 5 shots, and I'm like, okay, either I'm nuts, or Squamish is infested with Sasquatches. I do know that people do some weird stuff out in the bush, some weird rituals or stuff out there, but that night, I was quite scared. Actually scared for my life. It's probably one of the scariest nights I've had. If you're reading this, I really appreciate it. I thought I'd put my experience out there and see what you have to say about Squamish. And if you have heard weird stuff out there too. All I know is Squamish has probably been one of the weirdest camping experiences ever. Just thought you might enjoy the scary experience I had. Hope to hear from you soon. All right, there you go. You're not alone. That's for sure. I'm curious I'm a little bit curious how you found out about this channel. First off, because it doesn't sound like you're into the outdoors, right? You're not into the outdoors, you're not into this topic, so I'm curious about how you found everybody here. What can I share about Squamish? All right, so we had a guy email in, when was it, last fall, and he got a picture, allegedly got a picture of one, his face beside a stump, and I tried to make my way up there, but there's a tree across the road, and there's crews there getting ready to take the tree out last fall, so I had to reluctantly leave, and I'll go back and I will get that done. Probably sooner than later now the snow's disappearing. So there's that. Probably 2 years ago I was up there, probably not too far from where you were. And someone noticed something in 3 trees behind me. And circled it and pointed it out, and it sure looks like the chest and the head and the eyes of something right there staring at me. Caught on the camera. And I went back there, and sure enough, that thing that was in those trees wasn't there when we went back. What else? I also was involved with dropping about a 600 or 700 pound domestic hog down a bank where no human could ever get that back up there without a tow truck and a cable. And through a wolf trapping thing that we're going to do with the First Nations chief there. Anyway, something picked it up and took it away. And also the skull from that was randomly found by a guy I know mountain biking 2 miles away from there. What else? The intersection in the Squamish Valley where you go up past where you're camping, forks off, and these guys from Squamish had made a bait pile, dropped a full 400-pound steer there in the snow in hopes of getting wolves off it. Something made that steer disappear and there was no tracks in the snow. That happened. What else? We've had lots of people camping along the river, seeing these beings, watching them. I was up there early spring, steelhead fishing, filming from the river, and I caught some big booms going off up in the timber in my video, I think. Did I get in the video? I think I did. What else? The amount of... also, Sarah knows a woman who had one of these run beside her in her vehicle coming down the Squamish Valley and passed her on the paved part of the road. What else? It's endless. It's endless. Endless in Squamish. They are there. Why are they there? That Tricooney Peak, sorry, where the wildlife biologist filmed that one. Up on your right as you're going up the valley. Which is the peak where we saw, where the thing was in our video. Standing in the trees. 2 or 3 people have videotaped or seen these beings coming down the slopes way up top there. They crossed the highway, the Squamish, between Whistler and Squamish. They crossed the highway freaking all the freaking time. There's so many sightings on that highway. It's absolutely silly. So, where does that come from? Squamish Valley, right? Why is there so many sightings condensed around the Squamish Valley? I haven't a clue. Because there's so many people from Vancouver, the big city, go there to play in the outdoors, right? It's almost ridiculously crowded. And if you look up the coast of BC, there's similar inlets the whole length of the coast. Why still persistent in associating where all the humans associate in that valley? Haven't a clue. So there you go. That's my little spiel that I can offer up to you. All right? But more importantly, just realize you're not alone. Okay? You are definitely not alone when it comes to experiencing these forest people in the Squamish Valley. It's so common. All right, this one's fairly long, so it'll probably be the last one for now, for today. This is titled, no title. Hey Steve, feel free to use my name. My name is Aaron. I'm from Boulder, Colorado originally, currently down here in the swamps of Florida. My father used to work for a nuclear plant in Colorado back in the 80s and was exposed to uranium. Long story, it almost killed him. Gave him a rare blood disease. And the goddamn Department of Energy doesn't give an F about his health or any of their employees. He ended up getting a rare blood disease called aplastic anemia, and ended up going through 2 bone marrow transplants, falling into a coma, having a heart attack, a stroke, and has been recovering, although slowly, and has had many setbacks. While being on chemo for well over a decade now. He got sick right after my brother died from an accidental overdose, and all kinds of other sad shit was going on. Holy. But he's the strongest, toughest dude I know. I would do anything for my parents, which is why I put off moving to North Carolina with my girlfriend, as she is also an awesome person, understands my duty as a good son to help my parents and do anything I can to make it easier for my mom, who has to be his primary caretaker these days. It's effing ridiculously hard, tremendously sad and depressing, but both of my parents are the best people I know. They raised me right. I'm writing you because my dad introduced me to your channel years ago when I first heard of your first encounter and your grandfather's encounter. Over the years, we have watched, listened, laughed, and more importantly learned from many of your episodes. The stories you read are legit. You can tell when people are either full of shit, off their rocker crazy, or high out of their minds and delusional as shit, which you don't get very often in your channel. You get solid info. Legit first-hand knowledge, served up by a host with a pretty solid head on his shoulders. I even grabbed a couple copies of your book and a few hoodies and shirts for my dad and myself. We're very hardcore listeners of your show. Well, to be honest, he has a very hard time hearing, and sometimes it's hard for him to read all the captions. But I know he still loves listening to you. In fact, your videos cheered him up, and your book kept him company when he was in the hospital. He spent months and months and months in numerous hospitals, ICUs, and rehabs. Now he's at home getting better, and still listening to your show with me. In fact, I showed your show to my girlfriend, who is a 9/11 operator. And at first, she used to make fun of me. But after a few episodes, she stopped making fun of me. And now she wants to listen just as much as I do. She even looks forward to listening to Steve. Haha. Anyways, enough of my intro and rambling. I just wanted to let you know you have definitely helped out my family, and I appreciate it. Good words. I'm totally stoked to hear that. Now, like I said, I'm from Colorado originally, and I've always spent a lot of time in the outdoors, either camping, hiking, rock climbing, backcountry snowboarding, river surfing, just always outdoors. About 6 years ago, when my dad was healing up from his first or second bone marrow transplant, I can't remember, he took myself and my other younger brother to a place in Colorado where there is supposedly a lost conquistador treasure buried in a cave. It's called La Caverna del Oro and is in the Sangre de Cristo mountain range. We've always known about Sasquatch, however, we talked more about the treasure, joking around about how if we found it, how we would get it back, and how we would end up killing each other and trying to make it look like an accident. We have a sick humor, I guess. Haha. But we ended up going up deep, deep, deep miles into the mountains, up old logging roads, until we had to drive the four-wheel drive, eventually getting to where we couldn't drive anymore, at which point we started hiking. And hiked so deep that it took us the entire day, from early AM to evening, before we got to our decided camping location. We were over 14,000 feet up, and so far deep that we didn't see another human for almost a week. It was glorious. I daydreamed about going back to that place. We finally set up our camp and talked about how amazing the sky looked and how rad it would be to spot a UFO. I refused to call them whatever the new woke term the scientific community is using for them. I tell you all this to let you know how insanely remote we were. If one of us snapped an ankle or had a major injury, it most definitely could have been death, as our phones didn't work where we were, and none of us carried personal locator beacons, not counting our cell phones. For 2.5 days, everything was cool, but the third or fourth day, my dad ended up coming down with what we thought was altitude sickness, even though we acclimated into the town nearest to the mountain for a day and a couple of days in Boulder before that. My dad ended up laying down, saying he wasn't feeling good. He had brought oxygen with him due to how high we were, combined with his medical condition. And I will say, supplemental oxygen is pretty amazing when you're at elevations that high. When my dad laid down, my brother, who's about 5 years younger than me, decided to gather firewood and start a fire for dinner, and it was my job to get the water. Our camp was pretty far from the nearest river, which was about a mile away. I ended up strapping my dad's .44 Magnum Desert Eagle to my chest and drank a full bottle of Fireball whiskey as I put the headlamp on. What? and drank a full bottle of Fireball whiskey. I hope it wasn't too big. As I put the headlamp on, I had to trek through dark timber for a mile to gather water for my ill elderly father. He was in his late 60s at the time, not to mention he was ill. So my mind was already slightly stressed and on edge. I was 36 at the time, I'm 42 now, but none of that meant anything. I lived in the city. I was a city slicker, although I grew up in the outdoors, but I felt like I became Rambo almost immediately just to psych myself up to hike a mile through the dark forest to get water at night by myself. Halfway there, I ended up getting a signal on my cell phone, and I was like, oh shit, I have to call my now ex-wife, who was my fiance at the time, and tell her what I'm doing. I made her nervous as hell, and when the call cut out, the darkness enveloped me. I kept trekking up the trail and started hearing something to my left in the timber sounding like someone was pacing me. I'd stop, it would stop. I put my hand on the gun, making sure it was ready in case I needed it. But when I realized that there was something, which now sounded much bigger and even closer, I didn't even consider grabbing the gun. All I could think about was, what the F? I thought it could possibly be a mountain lion, but it didn't sound like something with 4 legs would sound like. I wasn't thinking Sasquatch at all when it was going on. However, now that I look back, I realize the reality of what was happening to me. Bears don't sound like huge humans pacing you in the woods. The sound got louder, then disappeared, and sounded like it somehow came around to the right side of me in the trees to my right. I thought, I'm going to end up getting attacked from behind. This is insane. I ended up making it to the river, loading up my water, and noticed while filling it up how absolutely silent it was. I lit a cigarette, started walking back at an almost jogging pace. I was panicked and not hearing the sound. However, I realized how silent the forest sounded. Then all of a sudden I started hearing trees and shit breaking in the forest to my right again. And as I would move, it would move. This time, on all the way back to the camp, and I'm sure I ran into the campsite at nearly half a sprint and out of breath and terrified. I ended up staying a lot closer to the campsite for the remainder of the trip. But I know what I heard, and no one can ever tell me any different. It literally sounded like someone twice the size of Shaq was chasing me through the woods and pacing me every move I made. We ended up leaving just in time before a monster blizzard came, though. Excuse me. It would have killed my dad for sure. So I'm forever grateful. We never found any gold, but that trip was one of the most memorable trips I've ever taken in my life. I'm praying every day, all day, that my dad will get better so we can take another trip. I don't know if anyone listens. Praise. But if you do, I would take any prayers we could get. I just want to let people know that in the Colorado mountains, in the Sierra Grande range, in the La Caverna del Oro cave area, there is definitely activity that doesn't seem like it wants you in the timber. I want people to know these things are out there and to be safe. Just because you're right at the timberline doesn't make it any more chill. The natives didn't call these bastards ridge walkers for nothing. We even have them here in Florida. And my girlfriend and I have found Sasquatch hair on Mount Mitchell, North Carolina. No bullshit. I have a chunk of gray and white hair that we found about 9 feet up in a tree in an area of Mount Mitchell where no horse could ride through because the terrain was so rough and steep. Anyways, I don't want to take up too much of your time. Just know that you have loyal listeners from Colorado, Cleveland, and New Jersey residing in Florida and listening to your show all the time. Whenever I miss an episode. Sorry I didn't have more info for you or more of an exciting story. However, it was pretty traumatizing for me at the time. I was buzzed, had a massive gun, and none of that helped me feel any safer in that timber. But I want to go back more than anything. And one of these days I want to live in BC. You know, the most beautiful mountain ranges I've ever seen in my life. If you ever decide to guide again, know you have people in the States who would jump at the offer. I'd love to hang out with you and my dad I think you dudes get along. You're similar in a lot of ways. Anyways, have a good one, Steve. You seem like a solid dude, and don't let anyone's bullshit get to you. You have the best channel regarding this information, hands down. I just wish you would make more videos of you going into the timber. And if you go to the people who talk to these beings, just be safe, dude. I'll read again someday. Your friend in Florida, Aaron Gombar. And if you read this, give a shout out to my dad, Tom, and my girlfriend, Stephanie. They're huge fans. All right, Tom and Stephanie, there you go. Thanks for watching. Thanks for contributing. This place is nothing without people like you, right? This place is nothing without people. And there you go. Hope your dad gets better. I'll guarantee he's receiving about probably 20,000 prayers within 5 minutes of me speaking right now. Guaranteed. Everybody tries to take care of each other here, right? It's good to watch. Good to be part of. Now, drank a whole bottle of whiskey to go get water. What? You know, it's funny, when I'm in the woods, when I'm doing anything physical, like, I don't drink. I drink. My friends, I have a few, my absolute clown friends, we definitely like to get together and have no limits and throw shit at each other and have comedy evening and then pay for it for about a week after, but I don't normally drink. And I found, even when I'm in the woods, when I would go do 30, 60, 90, 100 days straight in the Rockies, the odd time, like a lot of hunters will bring their own beer or whiskey or whatever, have wine even into the main camp. And I find that if I even have one beer, that works against me physically. Is pretty, is wild to be aware of. Watch it. You know, one time I had a good friend of mine came up and he cooked for us. He's an actual professional cook, and he came up and cooked for us in my camp one time for 2 hunts, I think. In return, they let him shoot a moose. But anyways, one time we went up the mountain for late afternoon, and he brought like 4 beers in his backpack. We sat there and had 2 beers each, and it totally put me off my game and made me feel physically less than I normally felt. I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying, for me, it just doesn't do me much good. Physically, I noticed that directly. Anyway, a bit of a ramble there, wasn't it? I got to get moving. I got a lot to do, a lot to catch up on, a lot to get going. And I'll definitely be back for my another hour tomorrow, I hope. Was it Thursday tomorrow, I think? Friday, I'm doing a thing with Nino. And I'm going to email some people back today about wanting to get together with me here to share some crazy shit. One-on-one on video. What else? Still have to make my plans. I'm waiting for a reply from overseas, which may change up my travel plans for the South. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. Excuse me. But that's it for right now. So, share my story at howtohunt.com. Get it out. Get it off your chest. Get it shared. Get it made public. And don't be scared of shit. All right? I'll guarantee you 100% of us during our last moments of being alive, if you look back and remember yourself being scared of human beings, you're going to be kicking yourself in the ass. Guaranteed. You're going to be kicking yourself in the ass for going through life being scared of what people think. Without a doubt. Okay, I'm out of here.